Salam va Deprod Ba Shoma. The delegates of all, dear friends, of all UN member states who support the Universal Declaration of Human Rights should today boycott Iran's president speaking in the General Assembly, right? We're all here today from all over the country, including Canada and other countries as well, for many reasons, but let me offer just a few why we should be here today. And you've already heard Congressman speak so well about it. Ahmadinejad denies the Holocaust, which was the catalyst for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Office of the UN High Commissioner for refugees, for all manner of institutions at the UN. By denying the Holocaust, Ahmadinejad denies the legitimacy of the human rights superstructure built on lessons from the Holocaust. I'm going to keep this as short as I possibly can. His regime is engaged in nuclearization and weaponization of its developing nuclear capacity in violation of international atomic energy safeguards. A nuclear weapons capacity in a state which rejects the international legal order poses a major threat to all members of the human family. The regime, as you all know, conducted an election in June which involved massive ballot stuffing and then violently suppressed its political opposition. This included an attack on Camp Ashraf on July 28th, home of the People's Mujahideen of Iran, killing 11, and I see many of the photographs here on signs of the martyrs, injuring hundreds, and arbitrarily detaining 36. The attack was by Iraqi forces, but we all know it was done at the behest of Iran's regime. What is the rest of the world going to do now? The UN General Assembly should again pass a resolution this year condemning Iran's regime for its gross human rights violations. The resolution, and I'm sure you'll agree, should mention the suppression of the People's Mujahideen of Iran in Camp Ashraf. Yes. The United States should guarantee protection of Camp Ashraf, right? The multinational forces in Iraq declared that the residents of Ashraf to be protected persons under the Geneva Convention. Iraq has ceased to offer this protection. The U.S. has a continuing obligation under international law to protect the residents of Ashraf, right? The UN Security Council should refer the situation in Iran to the International Criminal Court. As brutal as the attacks of July 28th at Ashraf were on its unarmed residents, they face a threat that's even worse. The United Nations Assistant Mission in Iraq should establish a permanent observer human rights post in the camp to discourage such a threat, right? The government of Iraq should release the 36 arbitrarily detained Iraqi refugees from Iran. The release has already been ordered by 2 courts in Iraq. Now, the Iraqi government, under prodding by Tehran, has threatened to relocate the residents of Camp Ashraf. This is absolutely contrary to international humanitarian law, right? Okay, Iran is a country with immense human, cultural, and hydrocarbon resources, which is vitally important to regional peace and world stability. A much better choice would be for all responsible governments to begin working with all democratic opposition groups in Iran, right? Among them, of course, is the Mujahideen, which because of politics and commercial interests at their very worst have trumped fundamental legal principles and human rights, is still listed as a terrorist organization in the US and Canada. That is shameful. The 27 European Union countries, as you all know, early this year delisted it following decisions by 7 European courts unanimously holding that it could not be considered as a terrorist group, right? The PMOI MEK today seeks for Iranians the rule of law, separation of religion and government, a nuclear-free Iran, equal rights for women and all religions and ethnocultural minorities, normalized relations with all governments, and representative democracy for Iranians. That's what we all want. That's what all the Democrats of the world want. The government in Tehran, through its Revolutionary Guards, as we heard earlier, has long sought to destabilize the entire Middle East and well beyond. The world's best hope in Iran, dear friends, is undoubtedly, as we heard before, Marianne Rajavi and her National Council of Resistance in Iran, in which the PMOI MEK is the largest component, right? Some of the MEK supporters in Ashraf fled from Tehran in 1981, and I know that many of you have family members in Ashraf, and others have lived there since the mid-80s as refugees. Among them are former political prisoners as well as student leaders. There is considerable support for the PMOI among those many Iraqis who want their country to be independent from Tehran, right? The ongoing designation of the PMOI MEK as a terrorist group in the US and Canada is still being used as a pretext to maintain pressure on Ashraf residents to justify their expulsion to Iran, where it is a capital offense to support the PMOI MEK. Finally, I'm getting to the end. The PMOI MEK and its supporters in Ashraf have worked for peace and reconciliation between the Shiite and the Sunni communities in Iraq. They represent the aspirations of the Iranian people for a democratic society of peace and the rule of law. The residents of Ashraf continue to be protected persons under in international law pursuant to the 4th Geneva Convention. If the government of Iraq is unwilling to abide by the convention, the United States, under the established principles of international law, is obliged to resume primary responsibility for their security, right? We have had 30 years of appeasement of Tehran. We have to try something different, President Obama and all the rest of the world. Human dignity is ultimately indivisible in the world today. The Archbishop of Canterbury in the UK recently spoke out in Japan for the residents of Ashraf, in particular the 36 who remain in custody. If other political and religious leaders do likewise soon, I can't emphasize that too strongly, soon, their release can probably be obtained and the hunger strikes in the various capitals ended without loss of life. So may I, dear friends, and thank you for listening, let us at this moment pay homage to the memory of the 11 mujahideen in Ashraf who gave their lives for the cause of Iran's freedom. Let us also honor 36 Ashraf residents held hostage in Khalis in Iraq who have been on hunger strikes for 55 days, and those supporting them in Washington, Ottawa, London, Stockholm, The Hague, and elsewhere. They, of course, couldn't join us today, but may we please have a moment of applause for all of them in all of those places. Thank you. God bless.